Thank you for being here and welcome to a brand new year, right? I mean, we're all starting fresh. New year, new you. Well, in some forms. I hope you're enjoying the content we're producing here, and we're starting to get onto a theme or schedule or a little bit of consistency. I've been working behind the scenes on ideas and profiles and what I want to do here on this channel, and I think we're getting there. All that being said, if you are enjoying this, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And let's go ahead and dive into what we're doing. This video and this series of videos is going to be story time, right? Talking about experiences, talking about what we're doing, talking about my past, and answering questions that some of you have posed. And one of the most common questions I get as a videographer, as a photographer, is how did you get started? How did you end up doing this full-time as your career? And so I thought I'd make a video talking about that, talking about what it took to enter into this field, just to start in this space. And paired with this story time is going to be High West Distillery's Burr Rye. Over on my main channel, I just did a full bourbon review or whiskey review for the end of the year, the beginning of the new year. And so I thought, this being my #1 discovery this last year, I would celebrate this conversation with a little bit of a pour. And I really hope I can find more of these, because this is really just absolutely delicious. Sweet caramel, vanilla on the front. I mean, and I don't know anything about tasting. I just say things like other bourbon people are like, oh yes, just a touch, just a hint of caramel. But it really is like candy. That drink, now this isn't bourbon. This is actually a bourbon rye mixture. I know I get yelled at all the time. I call everything bourbon. I'm from Kentucky. This is a bourbon rye mixture. I believe it is, so 46% alcohol. And it's so clean. It's so easy to drink. There's no bite on the front. It's just smooth. It just grabs you by flavor. Your whole mouth gets filled with like this scent of sweet caramel, sort of like a smoky, a wood. It's like you're walking into a distillery. You're walking into and you just breathe in that saturated oak, that saturated barrel. It's just so delicious. All that being said, let's jump over to story time. Let's talk about how I became a videographer. So I'm turning 28 in 3 days, which means I will have been 8 years-ish as a full-time videographer and photographer. I was in college for the first few years when I started, and then I went full-time by the time I graduated from college. I have not had a real job since Panera, before being in school. I've been a freelancer and a contractor ever since then. It has been a rocky road in some regards, but I think overall it's been a really good experience, and I probably wouldn't trade being an employee for being an entrepreneur or a freelancer. I don't think I'd ever trade it. And at this point, I'm way too spoiled to ever go back. But before getting into photography and videography, was a storyteller, right? And that's all I really am still. I enjoy spinning a tall tale. I enjoy telling and DMing and running games and writing. And so I was pursuing a career as a writer. Not quite a journalist, but a storyteller, a documentary producer, someone who was going to write history, right? Tell either fiction or nonfiction stories about who we are and communities and exploring just the nature of humanity and trying to answer questions that have always bugged me. You know, who we are, why we're here, what we're looking for, what is the answer and the meaning to it all. I know those are all high ideas, but really, that is where my heart and mind was for the longest time. And so I was in school as a communications and English major at Berea College in Berea, Kentucky, a fascinating little school that you should probably check out if you're interested. It gives every student a full tuition scholarship, and I'm grateful for that. You have to be a certain degree of smart and a certain degree of poor in order to get in, and I qualified on both aspects. Well, except the smart one, but the poor one I earned. And so it wasn't until college. I'd done a little bit of photo, I'd done a little bit of video before college, but it really wasn't until college when I discovered that this could be a career path. I was watching a lot of YouTube at the time, I was consuming a lot of media, and I was working for the school paper, which naturally had some photography attached to it, because if you're a journalist, if you're going out and writing articles, you're bringing a camera with you and taking a few shots in order to tie it back. And I have never been very artistic, but I am very creative, and I'm good at weighing things and seeing what is pleasant, what is pleasing to the eye, right? It's one of the, like, I'm not a creative videographer. You can see it here on the channel. Everything I do is very safe, very standard. It repeats a lot of the same style of shots with floating B-roll and everything like that. My career has been like that, but standard and safe is sometimes what you're looking for if you want something that is high quality and consistent and reproducible. And so in college, I had a professor, someone from the financial aid department reached out to me and said, hey, we want to make some commercial videos. We think or know that you're good at this, which, by the way, I had really never done video before this offer. So they reached out and they said, how much would you charge to produce a series of commercials for us? And so I thought about it, thought about what I needed in order to do it, and I searched the price of a camera. When I started, it was a Rebel T5, I believe, something like that. Little Canon camera, simple little nifty 50 on the front of it, and a zoom lens on the front of it. So I searched the price of that camera and responded back, I'll need $650 in order to produce those commercials for you. What they didn't know, what I knew as a poor college student who didn't have a lot of spending money, is that the camera that I wanted to buy to be a videographer, to be a photographer, was right around $650. And so they said yes. I sent them an invoice. They paid the invoice. I ordered the camera, and that is the camera that I use to produce the content, right? Justifying the equipment you're purchasing, something I still do to today, justifying the equipment you're purchasing by having a contract or some sort of negotiation associated with that purchase. It's a trade, right? I'm trading, because money is just a representation of time, and so I was trading my time for access to gear or money. And it just happened to be that gear is what I actually needed to produce the content. That you kind of, the hands feeding the, it's a little backwards, but it worked. I got my first ever photography and videography camera, and then I just started exploring. I've never been a hobbyist, but I've always wanted to pursue the contracts, right? And so second shooting for weddings, reaching out to other photographers, finding ways to do photos for students on campus, or continuing to do work for the school paper, and I slowly just sort of grew my portfolio. From there, the next logical step was I needed an editing computer, and I needed to begin booking work in order to do that. So over one summer on my college campus, you could choose to stay and work for the school, working 20 or 30 hours a week, earning minimum wage at the time, and you could choose to stay on campus for students that really didn't have a good place to go home to. And I could have gone home, I suppose, but I was staying there on campus. But I did the math, and what I would be earning from working full-time for the college was going to be about equal to what I was going to be paying to live there on campus. And for an entire summer, not getting ahead, that just didn't make sense. So what I decided to do is I moved everything that I owned into a backpack, into a hiking backpack, into the backpack that I used on the Appalachian Trail when I was 13, and I slept on couches and on an air mattress and on park benches in my small Kentucky town, and in a tent from time to time in my small Kentucky town for the entirety of the summer, about a period of 3 months or so, earning and saving every penny that I was earning in order to buy a better camera, a D6, I believe, and then I also purchased my first ever editing computer, which is still the iMac, which I use to this day. That iMac has treated me well, and in fact, the Canon D6 I still use that to today as well. So remarkably enough, the gear that I purchased, the grind that I put in, sleeping on park benches, set me up for what we're doing now. I began to initially reach out to a few wedding photographers in the area, asking to second shoot, not even looking for a contract, and very quickly from that, those relationships led to booking full wedding contracts at a discounted price, a good price. I mean, in Kentucky, you have people who are trying to do weddings on the cheap, and I was able to provide high quality, good quality photos, family photos for people at pennies on the dollar compared to a lot of other people in the industry because I was starting, right? I had the gear, I was being competitive, and I was good at what I did. And so that's really how this all started. From a contract with someone who knew nothing about videography to a confident acceptance and invoice, purchasing the gear that I needed to do the contract, and then figuring out how I could do it, all the way up to sleeping on park benches, buying my first editing, software and computers, and slowly building and creating a business from there. I had a professor in college tell me that I should not do weddings, that it was a bad career choice, that it was stressful, and he hated doing them. He was actually one of my videography professors. And one of the biggest things that I remember is by the end of my senior year, about a year and a half or 2 years into being a full-time photographer while still in college, I remember him during graduation coming up to me and saying, "I'm sorry I ever gave you that advice." And that meant a lot because it wasn't right for him, but it was right for me. I was able to perform. I was able to do it, right? I was able to leverage and pursue, and I just had so much fun and so much joy and so much passion for creating and earning a profit and working for myself and pursuing something that I was willing to do and stop at nothing to pursue and make whatever sacrifices I needed in order to open those doors for me. And I graduated from college earning equal to or slightly above that professor that told me to never do wedding photography. And that was the career. That was the bridge. I then went on to do, I think my busiest year was 45 weddings in 9 states, on the road for almost the entirety of September and October at one point. And I loved it. I love what I do. I am so blessed and thrilled that I'm able to create and share and capture memories and tell stories for people as my full time. I'm just a storyteller at heart. It's what I've always been. It's still what I am. Telling stories here, taking photos and carrying on those memories, producing videos, all of it is just an attempt to document and share and discover and explore the world with people. And so that's a story. If you have any questions, if you have any specifics, if you want other stories, if you want to hear other answers down the road, this is probably going to be a theme here on the channel. Just story time, right? Whatever the case, I'm glad you're here. If you drink anything, whether it's a tall glass of milk, a solid bottle of water, or a bourbon, cheers to the new year. It's not necessarily going to be easier, but that's okay. Because it doesn't need to be easy for you to win. And I'm excited for you. If you're watching this, it means you're driven and excited and frustrated with where you currently are and ready to pursue or do or continue doing what you're already doing. So, to the new year, to pursuing our dreams, and I'll see you next time.